What's up, everyone? It has been far too long since I dropped a product review video for you, but today I have the Mutant Metals snapback rollers. These are touted as the best monos on the market. I think aesthetically we can all agree that is true. The question is, will they hang from a performance stance? So stay tuned, check out my thoughts. The Mutant Metals snapback rollers are a rack-attached Monolift J-cup with a roller in the mono arm itself. The snapback name comes from the design with the springs. When you unrack your bar, they snap back into the housing. They come in 2x3 or 3x3 options, as well as 5/8 and 1 inch, both metric and imperial. So as long as you have a rack that conforms to the basic standards of most these days, you're good. Rep, Rogue, Monster, Monster Light, Infinity, doesn't matter. They do this with a customized sized pin and some additional UHMW to make up the space on a 2x3 compared to a 3x3. The first question you might be asking is, why mono hooks in the first place? Well, monos will give you the ability to have an easier lift off. Squats means no walkout, bench means no need for a lift off from a training partner. The arms come out and only require a slight lift up to unrack and get to work. For bench especially, this can mean more pounds on the bar and healthier shoulders. The second question, who needs a roller J-cup? Using a standard J-cup, I personally find that once you get above about 500 pounds, things get more and more difficult to center. You end up moving the UHMW, and it's a pretty big effort to get it centered in general. With the roller, I've got about 800 pounds here loaded on the bar, and you can see that I can move it side to side. It still takes some effort, but nothing's moving out of the way, it's not getting caught, and it sits in a consistent spot every time. So if you're a heavy lifter, this can be a big benefit for you. Better setup, more consistent setup means a bigger lift. If 500 pounds is a never gonna happen number for you, then the roller honestly might just be a nifty gadget that really doesn't serve much purpose in the long run. The roller itself is made of a very dense composite plastic material, which you can see here. Nice thing here is that your bar won't get beat up, much like racking in a UHMW line J-cup. If you read my Edge Fitness mono review, you know the lack of UHMW was a bit of a bummer for me. The snapbacks are missing one piece though, the front lip. So Rogue just added this to the redesigned Ghost rollers, so hopefully Chris can implement something similar. You can see on mine just a little bit where I came up, racked the bar, and scraped over the top. So something that covers this front lip would be a nice addition. A really ingenious piece to the puzzle of the snapbacks is their maneuverability. My Edge monos were a hazard to move. Free swinging metal pieces as you tried to lock it into a rack hole, bolt on with a screw lock. The snapbacks, because while unloaded they sit inside the housing, are basically one clean piece to move. The pin, which is stainless steel so it doesn't chip, is fully welded in place, and the unit fits snugly onto the rack with the extra security of the magnet back pin. This by itself is enough to sell me on the snapbacks versus my old Edge monos. For how heavy these are, this is just a really nice feature. Chris even went to the effort of adding in a piece on the inside of the housing that absorbs some of the shock from when they snap back, which reduces the noise during lifting, which is a nice feature whether you have kids sleeping nearby or just don't enjoy the sound of metal crashing near your head. The aesthetics of the unit, well, I mean, just look at them. Custom color options for the housing, the mono arm, and a couple of different options for the UHMW. Put these in a tier all by themselves. Other than Irwin Fitness, I don't know anyone else making custom colors for monos. So if you have a color aesthetic, this is one of your few available options off the rack. Pun intended. I really like the housing, and you can see I went the extra mile and dropped some DIY lettering behind the MM logo. I'll put a link in the description below because I have a video on that as well if you want to do something like that yourself. One of the key comments and complaints about monos on the market is that they work better for bench than they do for squats. The reason for this is that in the bench you only need a few inches from the rack and you're solid. But with the squat, most people feel they need to have a little extra room in case they happen to lean forward. With the snapbacks, I've done bench and squat spells trying every bar out. What I can say is that bench feels extremely natural. The setup, unrack, and re-rack are infinitely better on these than on a traditional J-cup, and better than my Edge monos. I feel like anyone could get accustomed to this pretty quickly and easily and prefer their use over a standard J-cup. Squats, on the other hand, are mixed. I can definitely unrack it, stay put, and squat, but I've been walking out my squat for over a decade. So the idea of getting perfectly set under the bar in the rack without a walkout isn't exactly normal. There's also an odd feeling of re-racking the bar of a heavy squat and not being able to physically see and feel that it's 100% racked. When you rack against a J-cup, you know you made it. On the monos, because you have to trust that you are in and it'll slide down into place, it is a bit of a hold your breath and pray moment. I've missed once or twice and it was less than ideal. You can squat out of them and walk your squat out, no issues there at all, but after a few months I've decided they just aren't my favorite for squats. There are people who 100% use monos for squats regularly in a home gym setting. I'm just not one of those people. So if you're looking at monos at all on the market, the snapbacks or any of the other options, think about what your use will be. For me and for most people, their primary use is going to be for bench. Secondary use might be for squats. The snapbacks also have the ability to lock in place, which means you can remove the mono swing action and perform lifts like a traditional J-cup. If you have a half rack or a larger 40-inch rack, I think this is an awesome option. You can now pick and choose exercises to use a snapback or just a roller function. So now we're back to squats being a little more normal and leveraging the function of the rollers. For me, in a smaller rack, the monos take up too much room, so I can't use the J-cup function inside the rack. I used it outside of the rack for rows, but that was awkward as you normally rack the bar from above with rows. So the snapbacks can function like a J-cup roller, but I don't see most people only owning the snapbacks and using them on every lift. You could, but I personally won't. They function well for lifts where you are more under the J-cup and rack up, opposed to above the J-cups and rack down. The snapbacks come with a range of motion limiter just to make sure you don't overstretch the rings. My only complaint here is that the pin that holds it in place has popped out of mine multiple times. This should probably be a little more permanent. These two items with the front lip UHMW would make this aesthetically and functionally pretty much perfect compared to every other mono on the market. One of the number one requests I got for this review specifically was to compare the snapbacks in terms of their reach, so the distance between the rack and where the bar will sit in the mono, and the other options on the market. So if you've watched reviews from like Adam at Garage Gym Labs on the Rep Fitness monos, you can see that they often don't provide much clearance or, again, reach. So you can check his review out to compare those, and you can take a look here at the Mutant Metals to determine if that's enough for you. As I mentioned earlier, I did find that these were doable on squats. I wouldn't say that it's perfect. It does not match my walkout by any means. I probably need another 6 inches of clearance or something like that. But the bench is fantastic. There's more than enough room. I also got asked about the springs. So one is, will the springs last? I don't see any reason why they won't last. Anything over time breaks down and gets less and less usable. Look at, lifting wraps and straps and all kinds of stuff. At a certain point, they must be replaced. These could get to that point. More than likely, that shouldn't be a problem. It's not like it's a proprietary piece that Chris has made himself. They're items that you would be able to order. So even if for some reason something happened to Mutant Metals, if they stopped producing this exact model, if there were issues down the line, you'd still be able to replace them and you'd be fine. The other pieces is on the springs is commenting on how fast they retract. These are much faster than the counterweighted model that I had. I don't know that it's anything that I would say like, oh, the millisecond or something is a huge difference and makes the lift possible. I never felt like my edge ones were so slow that they got in the way. But I will say that the snapbacks are certainly very speedy in that department. Alright, so let's wrap this one up. Like with most things in the garage gym, the snapbacks aren't perfect. Rack attached monos as a whole are a creation that takes some inspiration from a big, giant squat monolift. These things are super costly, super space intensive, and they require multiple athletes to operate them successfully. You take that huge thing and you put it down in a piece like this, and there's just gonna be some pieces that don't work out as perfect as possible. So that said, the snapbacks will be my go-to setup for bench for years to come. I see no way that anything's gonna come out that's gonna beat these in terms of their aesthetics, their quality, their feel, the performance for bench. The liftoff is just amazingly on point. So this is my go-to for bench. For squats, I'll be moving back to the standard J cups, potentially even looking at a standard J cup roller. Since I do get into that 500-pound range for squats, I think that might serve me well. These absolutely dominate every other option aesthetically on the market and are on par, if not better, performance-wise than anything else I see. There are a couple of minor things that I mentioned that I think these could have done to them to make them a little bit better, which, interestingly enough, Chris at Mutant Metals has told me he is working on a version 2 of these as we speak. I do not have the details as to what those will look like, perform like, be made of, anything like that. But when I get those, I will add a link and a write-up in the description below. So you, depending on when you're watching this, may have the details already. I do believe that Chris has made a truly unique product, as this is a one-of-a-kind item. I think the price can be difficult to swallow, but if we compare it to, let's say, the Go Strong rollers, even though they are now offered by Rogue at a more affordable price, if you get the stainless pin with a custom color set, you're looking at just shy of this for a standard J-Cup roller. So this, you get the mono with it, and you get to support a small business. You get fully customized colors on both pieces and all the good stuff that comes with that. So if you are worried about the cost, you probably honestly aren't a Mutant Metals customer. He is not targeting a budget-friendly, conscious person. He is looking at the person who wants the everything in their gym down to the finest detail. So for the review today, my takeaway in one simple piece is these are freaking awesome. Not perfect, but freaking awesome. So if you lift at home, I highly encourage you to check out the Garage Gym competition. It's a competition that I run myself. It is a virtual powerlifting meet for people who lift at home. There is over $30,000 in prizes up for grabs in the 2022 fall competition coming up here soon. We do one in May and one in November. It is free to participate. Prizes go out in a raffle type drawing where you can win no matter how much you lift. So I'll have a link in the description on that as well. And of course, if you like what I did here today, I encourage you to check out my other reviews, like the review, thumbs up, whatever it's called today. Follow me, subscribe, the whole jazz, and leave a comment. It helps. That's it. Hope to see you again soon.